In April 1999, Shelley Fabares was placed on a liver transplant waiting list, a list that countless people join but few ever leave. She was not on a stretcher, not unconscious, not in immediate crisis. She was awake, alert, signing forms, absorbing doctors' clinical assessments of her survival odds, then returning to her hospital room with a small pager resting beside her bed. Each beep carried potential life or another stretch of silence, days or months she would have to wait without certainty. Few realized that the woman now counting down these moments had once been the safest face in America. Shelley had been, at different points in her life, the embodiment of perfection. On television, she was the dutiful, gentle daughter of the Donna Reed show, polite, proper, and entirely predictable. On the radio, her voice soared into teenage bedrooms across the country with Johnny Angel, topping the Billboard charts in the early 1960s. On the silver screen, she stood alongside Elvis Presley in some of the era's most beloved feel-good films. It was a life seemingly designed to shield her from hardship, yet the very order that had safeguarded her would become her invisible cage. Fame had come too early, success too swift, and the system that embraced her demanded obedience. Deviations were punished, choices were limited, and the very image that protected her also confined her. When the spotlight gradually shifted elsewhere, Shelley was left not with freedom but with a body that had carried the weight of a decade's expectations, and a lifetime's conditioning, for far too long. Shelley Fabares' story is not one of loud collapse, public scandal, or dramatic unraveling. It is the quiet tragedy of a woman trained her entire life to occupy the correct place, only to have her body finally force her to stop. What happens, the story asks, when someone is made an icon too early? What happens when the persona created for the public eclipses the person inside? Shelley's struggles with illness in her later years were visible only because of the transplant, but the roots of her endurance and silent suffering stretched back to her earliest years. Born on January 19, 1944, in Santa Monica, California, Shelley grew up in a fractured household. Her parents divorced when she was young, leaving her primarily under her mother's care. There were no signs of abuse, nor extreme poverty, but the sense of a fully intact home was absent. Life was quickly reorganized and put into motion as though the primary concern was that nothing ever fall out of rhythm. Hollywood was never far from Shelley's world. Her aunt, Nanette Fabares, was already a successful performer, well established in stage and television. Shelley grew up seeing that a career in entertainment was not merely a dream but a tangible, structured path with clear expectations, standards, and rules. She began appearing in commercials and small television roles at just 3 years old. There was no singular big break, her work alongside school was simply part of the routine. Photo shoots, lines, cameras, they were all as ordinary as eating breakfast. From a young age, Shelley learned repetition and precision. Stand still, repeat an action, maintain expression until the adults were satisfied. She learned to be correct before she even had the chance to know what she truly wanted. The childhood she lived was rich in activity and opportunity, yet profoundly lacking in space for missteps or self-determination. Pleasing others became instinct, compliance a reflex. Her anxiety was never about failure in the traditional sense, it was about being insufficiently correct. Nanette Fabares' example reinforced this pattern. Not through glamour or instruction, but through quiet demonstration. Shelley saw how a performer maintained her position, navigated expectations, and survived in a demanding system. Success was less about brilliance than about dependability. Shelley absorbed these lessons without a word being spoken. By the time her first significant opportunity arrived, she was already conditioned to step into it seamlessly. When Shelley was cast on the Donna Reed show, it was not a leap but a natural progression. She did not enter a role, she entered a machine she knew intimately. The show, an emblem of post-war American stability, demanded consistency over artistry. Mary Stone, Shelley's character, was not there to disrupt, she existed to preserve order. In the late 1950s, television was not searching for innovation, it was seeking safety, repetition, and reassurance. Families tuned in to see a mirror of stability, calm parents, well-behaved children, conflicts small enough to resolve in 30 minutes. The production itself mirrored this philosophy. Each season could produce up to 39 episodes, with no deviation from schedules and routines. Shelley learned to operate within the same system of efficiency and order, moving seamlessly from a makeshift on-set classroom to the filming location, lines memorized, emotions contained. Her professional life became a continuous exercise in precision, delivering lines exactly, holding the right smile, repeating scenes dozens of times without faltering. To survive, she learned not to stand out, only to be right. That rightness, however, became a double-edged sword. While it safeguarded her from the harsher aspects of Hollywood, it also defined and limited her. Mary Stone's gentleness, composure, and propriety extended beyond the screen and into Shelley's professional life. She was trusted, relied upon, admired, but trapped within the same frame that had made her beloved. Television gave way to music, yet the pattern repeated. In 1961–62, Shelley recorded Johnny Angel. The recording studio was foreign territory, yet she approached it as she had approached the camera, with compliance, instruction following, and precision. Her voice was lightly produced, softened to match the era's ideal of gentle, unthreatening femininity. The success was immediate. The song topped the Hot 100, sold over 1 million copies, and earned her a gold record. Yet Shelley had no time to internalize this triumph. The machinery of fame moved too fast. Music was not her choice, it was a new extension of the existing mold. Film followed. Between 1964 and 1967, she starred in 3 movies with Elvis Presley: Girl Happy, Spin Out, and Clambake. It seemed like a perfect expansion, from television's safe daughter to cinema's leading lady, but Shelley observed the limits behind the glamour. Elvis, at the pinnacle of fame, was a man confined by the system's relentless expectations. Shelley recognized her own potential future in that mirrored confinement, expanding fame, shrinking freedom. As the 1960s progressed, television, music, and film success did not feel liberating, they felt enclosing. When she left the Donna Reed Show in 1966, it was outwardly a choice, inwardly, it was a step away from a mold that had begun to suffocate her. The industry, however, continued to see her through the familiar lens, the gentle, dependable face of propriety. Offers were safe, minor, reinforcing the image rather than expanding it. To take risks meant risking invisibility, to stay safe meant never fully evolving. It was not until 1971 that Shelley found a role that allowed her humanity to emerge: Brian's Song, a drama unencumbered by commercial formula, where she could portray grief, vulnerability, and emotional truth. The Golden Globe nomination that followed was not about fame or public recognition, it was validation of maturity long delayed, a recognition of depth she had always possessed but had rarely been allowed to show. Life after peak fame brought personal equilibrium. A stable relationship with Mike Frell, free from Hollywood's schedules and expectations, offered her a new rhythm, one of choice, presence, and quiet continuity. Here, love did not require performance or propriety, and Shelley learned the value of being alongside someone without needing to be a role. Then her body intervened. Fatigue, subtle at first, grew unrelenting. A minor fall during a job revealed the hidden truth: her liver was failing. In April 1999, she joined the transplant waiting list. For 22 months, she lived in suspended uncertainty, each pager beep a heartbeat of hope or disappointment. Discipline, schedule, precision, the skills that had carried her through Hollywood, offered no protection. She had to learn a new rhythm: listening, waiting, trusting, accepting limits. When the transplant finally came on October 23, 2000, it was not a climactic victory. It was survival, and survival reshaped the axis of her life. Calendars once densely packed with obligations grew empty. Days were no longer measured by appearances or performance but by the ability to live within her body's limits. For the first time, Shelley was not keeping rhythm for others, she was keeping rhythm for herself. Her post-transplant life did not seek publicity or reaffirmation. Appearances were rare, selective, unburdened by the need to prove belonging. Shelley's legacy is not in the headlines, the charts, or the roles she played. It is in the quiet demonstration that human life cannot always fit within the bounds of an image or system. Mary Stone was never just a character, she was a structure capable of wearing down the person inside it. Shelley's endurance, her ultimate ability to stop, to live at her own pace, is the story that lingers. Today, Shelley Fabares lives not in rhythm dictated by lights, cameras, or applause, but in rhythm dictated by health, presence, and listening to her own body. Mike Frell remains by her side, quietly anchoring her life in a way no public spotlight ever could. Her story is not about triumph or reinvention, but about surviving a lifetime of imposed order and finally learning to live on her own terms. Shelley's life reminds us of the hidden cost of perfection, the quiet suffering behind smiles, and the extraordinary courage it takes to simply stop and listen to oneself after decades of keeping rhythm for everyone else. She is still here, not to be remembered more, not to reclaim a role, but to exist fully in her own measured, careful, human rhythm.